Hi, I'm here today with artist Pepa Prieto. I'm going to ask her some questions from gallerist Walter Maciel. My name is Dean Monogenes. We're going to start with the first question, which is, how many years have you been working with abstraction in your painting, and did it evolve from more representational imagery?
Hi, Walter. Hi, Dean. Hi, everyone. So, since 2015, my is the first year I did my first solo exhibition with you. My interest kind of shifted in the sense that I wanted to start making paintings that were more frontal instead of paintings that were worked more like windows, like my older work. So basically, at the beginning, what I started doing was simplifying the work and making blow-ups of my older of the details of my older work. And for that, the kind of the shapes, the mark making, and the color, they all became bigger. So I still have to these days a bit of a problem thinking of my work in the category of an abstraction or representation, because I do think that although the work has kind of changed, it comes from the same place, and it's just the use of language of painting for me to be able to explore my personal narratives. That's kind of the core of the work.
Your newest series of abstractions appear somewhat like a palindrome, with the repetitive markings and colors being mirrored on each side of the painting. Can you explain more about your ideas to format the work in this style?
2018, things outside of the studio started to get a bit more complicated. So every time I would really enter the studio, I felt that I needed to basically create to simplify and create a type of balance, in the sense that before I would always approach the paintings from zero. I would make decisions without really having kind of a guideline. So I thought that it was a better approach for me at the moment, and I'm still doing this moment, to create kind of a structure in the painting. So every time I would go back, I was able to have kind of like a route, an idea. It's a bit, the way I saw it is that in a moment of chaos outside of the studio, I could not I wanted to have a bit of a guide inside the studio. So for that, what I started to do was to kind of like draw, make some guidance in the linen or in the canvas by drawing on top of the canvas, and have a little bit of some structure. So I think basically it's like in these moments of anxiety and uncertainty, basically right now it's the end of August and we are at the thick of COVID-19, and I'm talking about 2018, when things in my life, and I think in Spain, in the United States, even before, started to become very unstable. The necessity to create kind of a roadmap inside the studio and to build the paintings with some coordinate was a real necessity for my work.
So, our next question is the following. Your paintings are made with acrylic paints on either linen or canvas. Can you tell us more about your painting practice in terms of application and process?
I kind of call it the first phase. Like, I kind of waste a lot of time. I'm thinking, and I have a lot of kind of, as I said, I'm wasting time. And once I think that I am kind of ready, I start taking notes in a notebook and maybe writing about what I think, my feelings, emotions. I sometimes read a little bit and research a little bit and write it down. And from then I start making small sketches. Normally they are just done in pencil or in pen, kind of doodles of the possible drawings, of the possible paintings, excuse me. And the next phase is basically I start making drawings with materials and colors and possible shapes, and that are more kind of to establish the mood of my final paintings. At that point, I kind of clear that part out and I decide what size of painting, what type of materials I'm going to use, if it's going to be raw linen or raw canvas, if I'm going to use oil sticks, if I'm going to only use acrylics, and I start painting basically. So once I've decided the size and the shape and the color tones, I just concentrate in painting. So part of the process is that I do not really follow any of the guidelines that I had done before. I just concentrate and I try to listen to the painting, what it needs, and from that I start making the decisions. So the way I build my paintings, it's through very thin layers, and sometimes, as I said before, I use oil sticks and acrylics. So there's not a lot of room for error. So if I've basically done an error, most of the times I have to start the painting again and again. So that is the process. It's kind of like a never-ending process.
It's been written about your work that there's a relationship to fabrics and perhaps even weaving.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you could speak a little bit about that, go into some detail about those connections.
Yes, so I don't know if it's a mixture. I was born in Granada in the south of Spain, in the oldest part of the town that is called El Albaicín. My family, I come from a family mostly of architects, and my mom was a pottery maker, so I was basically surrounded by a lot of crafts and a lot of fabrics and a lot of this type of things that a lot of people that are born in those environments are. And since I was very young, I had a big exposure to artistic things, let's put it that way. So when I decided that I wanted to make my own paintings, I knew exactly what I liked and what was I gonna basically work to give to the viewer. So I fell in love with art povera too at a young age. I think the first time I saw the work of Mario Merz and all of this Italian art povera, I loved the simpleness of the materials. So I decided early on too that I wanted to use raw linen or raw canvas without really putting too many layers, and maintain the fabric quality. I mean, this is something that is kind of complicated to do in the moment you're applying paint to the canvas, because basically you are transforming obviously the canvas. So that's part of this struggle that I have in my process. I'm always constantly trying to put paint, to take out paint, to put paint.
So it sounds like, and this is different, I mean, from other painters. It sounds like if you make a mistake, you basically have to trash the painting and start from zero on a new piece of linen.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, basically yes. Because when my paintings don't really have a lot, in the sense that they're kind of simple paintings, and that's what I'm actually looking for. So the quality of the fabric, the ethereal, is very important for me, because what it is creating in a way is a mood, or is a sense of place, is a feeling. It's not so much, especially about the representation of the image. So every time I take it a bit too far, the painting and the surface starts to get kind of like very rigid, and I basically don't like it, so I throw it again, and I have to obviously start from zero, because there's no way you can erase the acrylic paint when it has taken into the raw canvas, as I do not prepare the surface. So yes, there's a lot of throwing and a lot of starting again. It's part of the process. It's kind of like this mandala, and it's kind of this repetition where painters live in, I think, repeating and repeating.
So the next question from Walter is, I know your history as a professional snowboarder in your younger life. Can you explain how your interest in painting was influenced or formed by that experience?
If I could pinpoint to things that professional snowboarding taught me, is that first of all, painting and snowboarding, they are activities that are very individualistic. That means that you have to make a lot of decisions in your own. So when I am painting, basically I am the person that is making this decision when I start painting, when I finish a painting, or the course of that the painting takes. Snowboarding obviously is the same. So for that, you have to be very present. I think in snowboarding too, you have to be very present for the obvious reasons. Obviously, if you are not, you can basically hurt yourself. And in painting, it's a very demanding activity, in the sense that you cannot be painting thinking about, I don't know, random things, because painting requires all of your kind of your soul, your body, your mind, and you have to work to be, especially the way I paint, to be in a state of mind and to act, even if it's just to listen to the painting. You have to listen to the painting to then understand what the painting requires. So I think that's an important, to be present, basically.
You began your art career in Madrid and moved to New York City over 10 years ago. How has this move and your current location in Brooklyn changed your work?
So I think there have been a lot of changes since I moved to New York. Some of them have been normal in the period of a 10-year period of time, and others have probably been more reactionary to living in the city. So color, for sure, has been one of them. I use a lot of color in my paintings, so I think from the long winters, cold and kind of gray winters, I reacted by creating a lot of color in the paintings. So one example is the series of yellow paintings that I started making in 2016, and they function as windows, where most of the paintings were created just with different hues of yellow. So I would say that's probably been one of the biggest reactions that I've had to New York.
Lastly, who are some of the artists that you admire and have influenced you over the past several years as a painter?
So there've been a lot of different artists that I've been influenced by, without a doubt. I would say that early on I discovered the 1970s movement of art povera. People like Mario Merz, Marisa Merz, Gilberto Osorio, Janis Kunelis. I really liked the materiality and the organic use of materials, and it stuck to my mind, and for that I decided that raw canvas or raw linen or like jute and all of these materials were going to be the base of my paintings. And I think in these past 11 years living in New York, I started to revisit the history of American painting. since the 1950s, and I think I went a bit deeper into women painters and painters of different ethnic backgrounds, because I truthfully knew not so much about both categories. So in that search I discovered two painters I would say that I really love, and I think they're great painters. For me, that is Charlene von Hale and Laura Owens. And I think two, I've carried artists or painters all my life that they've helped me to navigate through life. And maybe one of them that lived in New York too was Louise Bourgeois. I think her writings, her needlework, her tests have really helped me to navigate life.